finger holding up, or was that a yes? I don't know. Okay, everyone, everyone in the building, so we're going to nestle in for Shabbat. We will begin with service number 2, page 75. As we're such, there are no candles. Oh yeah, there are candles. Manuel, you want to light candles tonight? Yeah? Okay, so with service number 2, just as we wait to be able to start and welcome everyone. David, am I right? We're waiting to welcome? Oh, right. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, all of you at home. Shabbat Shalom to those here in the sanctuary on this, what feels like quite peaceful bank holiday weekend. I invite you to join us immediately into Shalom Aleichem as we welcome Shabbat, welcome each other before we light the candles. Page 76.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. V'melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Morkim L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. V'melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedkem l'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon.
Those of you who are at home, this is your moment to get your candles ready, and for us as a full hybrid community to usher in Shabbat together. Let's stand, if you're comfortable standing here in the sanctuary as Manon lights candles for us. We're going to go straight into Yedid Nefesh. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. So, Yedid Nefesh. You can find Yedid Nefesh on page. We haven't done it. Thank you. I'm so good with the pages in this Siddur. Page 78 for Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachama, Av HaRachama. Meshok Avdecha, Eretz Onecha, Eretz Onecha. Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachama, Av HaRachama. Meshok Avdecha, Eretz Onecha, Eretz Onecha. Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayal Yishtakaveh El Mul Hadorecha. משוך עבדך, ארץ זונך, ארץ זונך.
And then just before we turn to the Baruch Hu, I'm not going to make you turn to Psalm 100, but there is one verse from Psalm 100, which actually, looking at Manon and Jacob, thinking of you planning your wedding, interesting for you. Psalm 100 is often the psalm that brides come into. And Psalm 100, which you can find if you want to follow it, it is on, I'm echoing here, which I'm sure is not sounding very nice for everyone, but you can follow Psalm 100 in the festival morning service. I'm just trying to find it for you so that you are able to experience it. And this beautiful psalm on page 453. Shout for joy to Israel's God, all the earth. But there is one line, Ivdu Adonai b'simcha, to worship God with joy. And I think the discipline of joy is as important as the discipline of duty and responsibility, to be reminded that actually bringing joy and happiness and ease and levity into our lives is part of our obligation as Jews. Ivdu Adonai.
עבדו את אדוני בשמחה. בואו לפניו ברננה. עבדו את אדוני בשמחה. בואו לפניו ברננה.
Let's stand for the Baruch Hu, having welcomed Shabbat, having welcomed each other. Let's go into the main part of our service together.
Baruch et Adonai Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed.
Let's sit down. Top of page 93, as we mark the passing of seasons, the changing of light and darkness, as we go towards, but not quite, the end of our summer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv arabim, v'chochma poter sha'arim, v'bitvuna mashane itim, machalif et hazmanim, musadeh et hakochavim b'mishmartehem b'rakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golelo mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, u'mavi yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla, Adonai tzavaot shamo, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofteinu, v'kutenu nasiya kedutena, v'nishmak v'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Eloheinu be'orech yameinu, Uvahim nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Be'ahavatcha al tasur, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohim amo Yisrael, Elohim amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Le'olam va'ed.
Let's offer together in Hebrew or English. Ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol mo'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta ba, v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'b'lechtecha b'derech u'b'shoftecha u'kumecha, Ukashatam la'ot al yadecha, v'hayu latotafot beinenecha, ukatavtam al muzot beitecha, uvisharecha.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Emet ve'emunah kol zot. All this, the words of the Shema that we offer, we hold to be true and sure. Let's read together. You alone, Eternal One, are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You have freed us from oppressors, delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt forever to serve you in freedom. When we witnessed your power, we praised your name and gave thanks. Willingly, we accepted your rule, and then, full of joy, we sang together. Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We offer our evening prayer for Shalom Bayit, for peace, for ease, freedom from famine, distress, and war, and it doesn't cease to be palpable and real for us. Sukat Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel. Let's stand for those who are comfortable doing so as we go into our Amidah, our standing prayer that we sing with Dean.
Adonai Safatai Tiftachu Fiya Gitei Latecha Adonai Safatai Tiftachu Fiya Gitei Latecha
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imohot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'Ma'an Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Hozeh Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Machaye Metim atah Rav Lohoshia, Mashiv HaRuach, Morid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh, Umorid HaTal. In your love, you sustain the living. In your compassion, you grant us eternal life. You support the falling. You heal the sick. You free the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Who is like you, source of all strength? Who is your equal, sovereign author of life and death, whose will it is goodness shall prevail? Trusting in you, we see life beyond death. We praise you, O God, source of eternal life. Kadosh ata v'nora shemecha ve'en lanu Elohim baladecha. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el, ha'kadosh. Let's sit down now as we sing Vashamru together, but really an invitation to think about what Shabbat, this Shabbat in particular, brings to you. I'm seeing on screen that Jane and Gordon, although they're home with COVID, are celebrating their brilliant granddaughter doing well in her GCSEs. I imagine that each of us has something we are proud, appreciative we got through, we did well at, a blessing that we hadn't expected, or a blessing we are very aware of. So let us bring that thoughtfulness of what Shabbat is for us this week into our singing Vashamru. We're on page 99.
Vashamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת בנורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם.
Baruch ata Adonai, Makadesh, HaShabbat. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. Baruch ata Adonai, she'otacha levadacha b'yira na'avod. Modim anachnu lach, she'ata hu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu le'olam va'ed. Sur hayenu, magen yeshenu, ata hu lado vado. Nodeh lecha nsaper tehilatecha, al hayenu hamsurim biyadecha,
ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת ערב ובוקר וצהריים. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, כי אתה הוא מלך גדול לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך גדול לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, חסיד לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, חסיד לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, חסיד לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, חסיד לעולם. חסיד לעולם. חסיד לעולם.
Baruch atah Adonai oseh hashalom. So just a tiny reflection for us as we go into our silent prayer, a moment of calm reflection and time to be with ourselves, is that the theme that's given to this week, although 12 times the word joy, simcha, which is my youngest child's middle name, although there is emphasis on joy, there is also in this portion, which I love this portion, it begins with the reminder, you've got it all to choose from. Blessing, curse, which are you going to choose? How are you going to choose to live your life? With ease, with joy, or are you going to make it difficult for yourself? But within this is the commandment to give to others, to look after others. That if there is anyone in the community that needs something, you have to make sure that you are giving it. And in our Siddur Lev Chadash, there are lots of reflections that if you look at the back in the bibliography, it tells you they are new. Generally speaking, and I've told you this before, they were all written by Rabbi John Rayner, Zichrono Livracha, whose modesty knew no bounds, and whenever he wrote something, he wouldn't write John Rayner next to it, but knew. But I really want to share what he wrote about the act of giving. I've just had tea just before we came into the service with Beverly and Charlotte, two beloved members, but I really want to dedicate this piece to Beverly, who I just wonder at the energy she has of the giving that she does. And I can imagine that all of us can imagine people in our lives and in our congregation for whom the idea of giving is just this. So just allow yourself to think of people in your life who have given this to you. To give to those in need is not to be gracious, but to do one's duty. It is an act of love, but also of justice, which is the root meaning of the Hebrew word tzedakah, for charity. It is to relieve suffering, to correct injustice, and so to ensure that God's gifts are shared by all in a society whose members care for one another as brothers and sisters. Giving is a supreme ethical obligation, second only to the still greater mitzvah of gemilut chasadim, of doing kind deeds. John Rayner slipped that into the Siddur for us. But one of the things I feel most proud of this congregation that I've had the joy of serving for 11 years is this notion that so many people in this community want to give, whether it's their voice of singing, whether it's kindness, whether it's financial means to ease burdens we might come across with new challenges and adaptations we make in our building, whether it's volunteering your precious time. There is this sense that we all buy into by being part of this congregation, that if there's something you can give, you want to give it. And I never cease being proud of that. So let us take a few moments of prayer, of reflection, thinking about ourselves, our community, about others that may have extended that to us.
Adonai Tzuri, Ve'Goali, Adonai Tzuri, Ve'Goali, Ratzon, Irifi, Ve'Egon Libi, Lefanecha, Adonai Tzuri, Ve'Goali, Adonai Tzuri, Ve'Goali. Say shalom b'Roma, Say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol bnei Adam. Say shalom b'Roma, Say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
So let us go straight to Aleinu. page 520, where we gather our energy to think of the world improving, getting better, of adding our voice, of standing up to what needs to be done. Stand. You're all very
Not playing until you
I
stand.
know, you're all very comfy here tonight, which is good, which is good.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גאולה ליוצר בראשית, אשר שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגר עלינו להמליך מלכותו. גר עלינו להמליך מלכותו. ואנחנו תורמים ומשתחווים מוהים. לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. הקדוש ברוך הוא. שהוא נוטש שמיים ויוצא לארץ, מושב ויקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינה תוזו בתוכי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אדון. אמת מלכנו אפס סגולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשב אותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת.
So let's stay standing and take a moment before we go towards the yahrzeit and us saying Kaddish together. I'd like to pause at the reflection on page 522, taken from George Eliot's Middlemarch. The growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. For most of us, we remember those that we loved deeply, and even when they are gone, the departed are with us. They inspire us to live as in their higher moments they themselves sought to live. We remember them now. They remain in our hearts. They are a continual blessing. This Shabbat in our congregation, we think particularly of Arnold Goldstein, father of Anne, John, and George Goldstein, of Mickey Maxwell, Malka Bat Yosef Lev, sister of Barry J., grandmother of Max Rebuck, and great-grandmother of Lenny Ella, and also of Jonathan Greenfield, beloved son of Jane and Gordon Greenfield, who mark his yahrzeit this Shabbat. Just earlier in the summer, we honored Jonathan's memory when Jane and Gordon created a prize in his honor for our Kabbalat Torah class, the first one this year, where the whole class received a Hanukkah to share in Jonathan's memory. Jonathan, who was dedicated to teaching, to education, to passing things on. And what better way than to create such an honor and prize in our congregation. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. May those who recall and remember their loved ones be comforted in their loss, as we say the words of the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yama divrach Yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'hayachon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, mazman karib b'mru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam omei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitahda v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha brichu. Leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, v'yakol b'nei Adam, v'imru amen. Let's sit down and let us offer our evening blessing that we offer on a Friday night to be able to bless each other, our children, each other as congregants together. So you can find the blessing just before Kiddush.
563.
Thank you, 563. I must have a ridiculous block that we don't even want to imagine why. So page 563 as we offer it together.
Elohim Ephraim Vakim Menashe Yesim Elohim Kesara Rivka Rachel Leah Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
everyone. So if you've got the energy, stand for Kiddush. But if you prefer to stay seated, there's clearly something in the water tonight. Josie's just mentioned the pictures that came out of Kadima, the summer camp, LJY summer camp, that yesterday was picture day. So photos where the kids all have photos in their synagogue groups, as well as other ridiculous groupings. But it was very sweet to see all of the FPS kids and leaders there feeling very proud, even tribal of their synagogue as they pointed to someone's FPS sweatshirt with glee. It was very adorable watching them do that. So let's go to Kiddush, page 564.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei Peri Hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Cut up this challah, take it over to the Kiddush table. We're so not used to cutting in the service that we need to have the nice knife again. We'll take that over. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. I think I can't leave. I'll let you cut.
Hi,